Hello, denizens. Former network executive reaction here. Because neither of these shows constitutes one whole worth reviewing, I thought I'd combine my reviews. As always, I am not going to go into specifics, but I will point out some details. Spoiler alerts. As a network executive, you're only looking for success. A show or movie could be dog shit, but that would be relegated to behind-the-back gossip. Oh, sure, it made $1 billion, but it was crap. In front of your face, you will be feted, given awards, and the best table at the finest LA establishments. Even the waiters/aspiring actors, upon seconding themselves behind the swinging doors in a kitchen, will bitchily exclaim to all the other aspiring actors, assembling meager portions of undercooked meat piled with sprigs of plants grown in Thailand into mini Jenga towers, that your latest was garbage. But we'll want desperately to attract your attention so they can be in your next piece of garbage. That is Hollywood. So we have She-Hulk episode 7 and Andor episode 4. Let's start with She-Hulk, and let's start with what we know the show is not. It's not a legal superhero show. It's not a sitcom, because that would mean we'd be seeing the same gang of characters every week. I could be catty and say it should also be funny. It says comedy in the show description on Disney Plus, the same place where they put warnings for violence, swearing, and nudity. Maybe they meant comedy as a warning and not as a description. That would make more sense. And it's definitely not a show about She-Hulk, the superhero, really. But even if, as a typical Disney exec with little ability to recognize what is being passed off as humor, the entire motley crew of demi-superheroes at Abomination's wellness retreat I found quite engaging. I've always loved subpar superheroes with suspect abilities. After all, I was Mr. Canoehead, Canada's aluminum-headed crime fighter.
Mr. Canoehead,
Once a mild-mannered insurance salesman
who one day, while portaging his aluminum canoe in Algonquin Park,
was suddenly hit by a giant bolt of lightning.
and had the canoe welded to his head. And so began the story of Mr. Canoehead,
Canada's greatest aluminum crime fighter.
And I did fight the evil Ultramind, who had a Radio Shack TRS-80 welded to his head, and with 16K of RAM, he planned on taking over the world.
All right, everybody stand back, for I am the Ultramind, the greatest evil genius in the history of evil geniuses. Hand me that bowl of bacon bits or suffer the wrath of my mayonnaise ray gun.
Not so fast, Ultramind. You can't take bacon bits without paying for them. This isn't Russia, you know.
Still, the amount of time spent in the confession circle was ridiculously long. The show is definitely not aimed at me. And that's fine. The challenge is to always find enough people who share the same sensibilities for a show and can make it a financial success. I don't care about the people who hate it. I care only about the people who like it. So far, it seems the number of people who do like it is not large enough to fill Jennifer Walters' A-cup bra. This is not a cheap show to make. The show seems to have settled into Jennifer's pathetic personal journey, so much so that she let her guard down and let someone extract blood from her just for a cheap hump that the wrecking crew failed to do in a previous episode. Why didn't she notice the guy was suspect or the needle mark? Who knows? Shows follow rules because it reduces variables for failure. Rules absolutely do not guarantee success. But if you can successfully check off boxes for premise, characters, casting, location, then you have half a chance for success. The creators have decided not to give She-Hulk much of a chance at all, which is unfortunate. As for Andor, I have even less to say. The show picked up towards the end of episode 3, and 4 actually introduces an adventure, thankfully, because Cassian has clearly forgotten all about his sister. I've come to the conclusion that Andor is a Latino Rings of Power Galadriel. I didn't think it was possible, but he's just as boring. The saving grace of the show is the incredible art direction and costuming. I love this more adult Star Wars world, devoid of the constant bleeps and bloops of droids. It's very Dune-ish in the way people slowly go about their business and the sci-fi world comfortably exists around them. The building complex where the fired investigator lived was very anime. The officer is going to reappear later, I'm certain, spoiling for revenge. Actually, I'm looking forward to that. I'm not a fan of the reluctant hero. That's just me. Luthen, wonderfully played by Stellan Skarsgård, first has to convince the always scowling Andor to join his scheme with a considerable amount of effort and financial inducement, and then has to convince the female rebel leader, Vel, to take Andor on. That was a lot of bitching and complaining, and we didn't even hear the end of that, because when Vel introduces Cassian, now called Clem, to her ragged crew, it's more endless kvetching. Plans of a robbery are afoot. It's made clear that this is a practically impossible mission. The Empire is tightening its security across its domain, and then the episode ends. The one thing I will say is that it was better than the first three, but not by much. Lord, I would just love to see a Rockford Files transplanted into Andor's world. It would be fun and entertaining. 2 words Disney seems to have completely forgotten. Thanks for watching, denizens. Did you see either of these shows? What did you think? Be seeing you. Oh, and Fran Drescher was barely in She-Hulk. Did you think I wouldn't keep that recurring joke going?